Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Line Your Own Pockets. Going down the road of Amibroker with me. I wonder we should do like a gray hair count. The more I go down Amibroker. But this wasn't. I don't think we were planning on making this a full on series. But like we talk about, we always read the comments and everything, and it was like overwhelmingly. I'm going through the same thing, and yeah, can you talk
Yeah.
more about this? And a lot of that was going on. So you guys want something, and we'll deliver it. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about how things are going today.
Yeah, there was a lot of feedback on my newsletter from people that were like, "Oh, this is perfect timing. I love this. Like, keep going, keep doing this. This is really great." So, yeah, let's keep going. What happened this week, Michael, with your Amibroker
Well, almost
journey?
launched a couple computers out Windows and things like that because what I was getting was so switch from Polygon to IQ feed. So then it was the whole. I think that was the most discouraging bit, which is why I really encourage people that are doing this to just go with IQ feed just right off the bat, because it was like, I got a little bit ahead in a race, and then I had to go back to the starting line, and then I had to start it all over again,
Yeah.
and that was, you know, really, really discouraging. I've gotten some data in there, and I need to figure out more, and that's something that we'll chat a little bit about. But I was able to get the plugins downloaded and set up, and after we recorded the podcast last time, I sat down with Dave for a second on getting the symbol list in, and then I was able to backfill about a
Yeah.
year's worth of data with a huge struggle, which I'll talk about how I was able to fix that in after.
Yeah. So with Polygon, I think the way they have it set up and the way they make it, so they make the entire day available of minute bars for all symbols, and that's one file.
Hmm.
I and the way it's set up to do the import, it takes a long time to import into Amibroker that way because it has to switch between uh, uh, every like the little database for every symbol to
Yeah.
import the bars each that way.
Hmm.
So I think you could make it a lot more efficient by reordering the data in the file and making one big file so that it goes one symbol at a time. I'm kind of curious if that would work and make it significantly faster. I think it would, but I'm curious now. I'm kind of curious to try it, but uh, kind of a rabbit hole that I want to avoid. Maybe somebody
Hmm.
has explored that and can give me some feedback on that.
Well, and I'm kicking myself because it's what I think Polygon or Massive or whatever they're trying to. It was like $30 a month, and IQ feeds like $100 a month. So the amount of time that I wasted, it was years of paying this different in fees. So it's one of those things, and I do it all the time, where I'll buy. There'll be two things online, and I'll buy the slightly cheaper one, then I'll break it, and then
Yeah.
just and then have to buy another one. So it was just another one of those lessons of just get the best stuff off the bat, and you know obviously $100, if it makes or breaks what you're trying to do with trading, then you're just not there yet, right? You need to save more money, or start with a free product, or do there's a lot of things you can do. So just huge kicking myself in the butt for that.
Yeah.
Part of the problem, there was like all these little snags in the way, but like we talked about, is that IQ feed doesn't just, there's not a just fill everything. There's a multi-step process. First, you have to get it a list of things and say, these are the symbols I need data for. And then it goes out and grabs it. So that was a huge bit, but you've got some great stuff on your website that helps with that, and all of that. And
Yeah. So
then,
I think that one important thing I want to point out here is there's different lists of symbols for US equities.
yeah.
And you might think, oh, well, let me just go get the list. Like there's one list. Well, there's not. There's all sorts of different lists. There's all sorts of symbology around
Hmm.
uh, different symbols, which ones to include. Do you include OTCs? Do you include warrants? Do you include ETFs? Do you include ADRs? So the best way to get the list is to use the one that your data feed provides. And each data feed will provide a list. I mean, they're coming up with the symbol list of the feed that they're sending you. So they're going to have a list. Not very conveniently, DTN, which is the company that makes IQ Feed, provides a list that's updated daily. And you might think, oh, okay, well, this is a small text file. Let me just download it. It's like several hundred gigabytes large because it's got every symbol, every option. So it's actually a massive file. And well, maybe I shouldn't use the word massive since Polygon's changing their name to that, but a very large file.
Yeah.
But I've got a script that will download that file, parse it in exactly the right way. That's very convenient to import into Amibroker in a very convenient way. So there's a script on my site for doing that. And you're really touching on something that seems like it's a downside of Amibroker, but it's really an upside because it's very flexible. You can import any data you want. You don't have to have since they're not providing the data, then it's very flexible. You can provide, you can do anything you want with the program. So there's a lot of flexibility there, but there's a little bit of a DIY element that you're not used to.
Well, and maybe maybe I shouldn't blame Amibroker for this. Maybe it's not real tests that I'm spoiled by. Maybe it's Norgate, right? Because what Norgate does a really good job of is they parse all of the data for survivorship bias and all of that, and it's only equities, and they strip out the options, and yeah. So maybe it's not the difference between Amibroker and real tests this time. It's just that the Norgate plugin is so easy because I don't need to I can create my own symbol lists if I want to, but by default it just pulls in absolutely everything and goes here you go. But that was a big thing. Is as soon as I got that set up, now things make a little bit more sense. There was some funny things where the all symbols, something that Dave showed me, because there's an option to apply and download all symbols. It doesn't mean all symbols, it means whatever you have selected. So like little things like this that there's just no way unless you read everything, and as soon as you figure it out, it's like, okay, it makes perfect sense. It's just everything that I have selected. But as soon as I got that done, the problem was I would do this big import, and I'd get everything would look good, and then I would run a back test on a very simple product or very simple thing, and at the end of every single back test, the program would just crash. It would just go. And I took the error codes and I put them into ChatGPT, and I went back and forth, and I put it in a whole bunch of places, and it was just wrong, and it was talking about all kinds of nonsense that didn't actually end up happening. Figured it out. So for the listeners there, when you set up a database, there's an option for you have to program when the start time and end time of the day is for you. If you have that wrong and you're doing something, I think this was just purely coincidental that we were talking about the first thing I'm testing is an opening range break. The fact that I live an hour off center to the market, right? So the market opens at 10:30 and closes at 5. That was just destroying everything. So I think what was happening is the end of day close, it was just breaking somehow, and then the whole program would just crash. And as soon as I went and deleted everything and rebuilt the database with that time change, things started to work for now. for the 1 year database. We'll talk about the 5-year database soon. That's still giving me problems.
Yeah. So, one of the many things I like about Amibroker is the fact that you can add custom columns into your backtest. But when you do that, and you run a backtest, you get this progress bar that's really accurate. It's a multi-threaded backtest, so you can see the number of threads for the number of cores you have on your machine. It's pretty accurate for how long it's going to take to finish, but it's going to finish the first phase of the backtest, which is like the main part of the backtest. There's a phase at the end where it's adding the custom columns, and during that part, it's going to look and feel like the program is completely locked up. Like it looks like it's not responding. And even you said to me, "Dang, something's wrong with this. Like it's not working."
Hmm.
That last phase is single threaded. It's not multi threaded. So I've actually talked to Tomas about this exact situation. He's going to try to put something in there that makes gives the user a little bit more feedback about what's going on.
Hmm.
But if you have a lot of trades in there, it's going to take a long time, and it's just going to feel like the program is not doing anything, but it is actually churning and doing those. And the funny thing about this is there were earlier versions of Amibroker where this phase took like 20 times as long as it does now, if you can imagine that. So there were times where I would start a back test on Friday after the close, let it run. It would get to the 100%, which would be fairly quickly. And in
Hmm.
that last phase where it's adding the custom columns, it would take like all weekend. So literally over 24 hours to go through that. It would eventually add them, but it would just take a while. And you have to be patient and understand what's going on. Otherwise, your first reaction is like, "Wow, this thing's a piece of crap."
Well, and a lot of this will just be growing pains, right? So as
Yeah.
soon as I have a process down of right making sure that everything is good and testing it against a small list and all of
Yep.
that to get started, that'll be fine. But yeah, this wasn't that. This wasn't taking a while. This was full on like error screen. The only button that's highlighted is
Yeah.
exit program. Like the whole thing crunched. Now, it could have been, and this is what I haven't had a chance to try the 5 year database again because, like you mentioned, that takes a long time. So I have to wait till some other work is done, which actually leads me to a question I'm going to ask you a little bit later. But the other thing is I had Norgate installed on because I use Norgate for real test, and I think somehow it snuck its way into Amibroker. So I
Mhm.
wonder if, and I was able to go through. I asked ChatGPT. It said, take these DLL files and just rename them so that the plugin like hides the plugin, which Dave laughs, so that's probably the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I went through and I just said you can't see Norgate anymore, and that may have been part of it as well. But yeah, getting the data into the system, that was the hardest part because it took like literally it's been a week. So we record these once a week and it's been a week and I've just been trying to, and I've only got a 1 year data set, which is okay for testing whether or not the strategy is working correctly and everything. But I want to get that 5 years plus for optimization, and I don't want to optimize off a small data set. I want to optimize off a larger one. But yeah, just if you're getting into this, just understand that the data is going to be, for me anyway, that was the biggest hurdle. I hope I figured it out now, but yeah, that was that
Yeah.
was a huge hurdle to get through.
Yeah. Well, one thing that it doesn't register with some people is creating a database in Amberbroker is super easy, and you should do it. Like you should not hesitate to create a new one. That's no big deal.
Hmm.
Like I think a lot of people think, okay, I've created my database. I got to make this one work. Like it's
I've I've deleted. Well, just so you guys, so I deleted. I kept thinking it was the database that was the problem, so I kept going in and just deleting the whole database, and deleting like 100 gigs of data, and then going back in and doing it again and again. So I created tons and tons of database. I actually went through and I removed Amnibroker entirely because I had the same install because I tried this thing like probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, and just LLMs weren't good enough, didn't have the time, didn't have the energy. So I was worried I had like some legacy stuff that I had messed up. So I uninstalled the whole thing. I deleted everything that was associated with it in the program files and everything is like completely clean, like it never existed on my computer. And I reinstalled it and set up a new database. And that still only took like an hour or two, right? So it's not,
yeah.
the import might take a while, but the actual work to create a database, it's like three buttons and you're good to go.
Yeah. So what I think you should do when you're testing with a 1 year database, and now you want to test with a 5 year database.
Hmm.
One thing to point out is you can't convert a database to have more bars in it
Right.
once you've created it once.
Yeah.
So, but that's fine. So so what I would do here is create a new database. You can
Hmm.
always switch back and forth between databases. So go ahead and do your testing. It's probably a good
Hmm.
idea. Test on your 1 year database, make sure things are working there. Create a 5 year database, run the exact same code. In fact, you don't even have to, like, you can have all your analysis windows up and just change the database, point to
Hmm.
your new one, run the exact same code in the exact same analysis window that you did with your 1 year, test it on the 5 year. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of flexibility here. And like I said, I could tell uh, you're getting your bearings. It's very interesting to me because I went through this like 15 years ago and I've forgotten all the sorts of things that I learned. So it's helpful for me to see what you're going through. And when I get these Slack messages from you say, "Hey, what's going on here? This thing's broken." All that's very helpful for me to see. And,
Mm.
a little bit of a stroll down memory lane about, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, I spent a weekend trying to figure out what was going on there. So it's fun to see that, see you going through the same thing.
Well, and I've actually feel like I am like 1% better at understanding the code behind it. Because so far, everything I've done is I've taken your demo file. I've been plugging in a ChatGPT. I've been having it do things. But, certain things like finding out how the parameter section work, that's been huge. So I can go through
Yeah.
and change certain things there. And it's not, I can see that there is actually a lot of similarities between there and real tests. It's just not set up, I think, as cleanly. I think is part of it. So when you get over that hump, I think you'll be somewhat in the same area. Whereas with real tests, there's a very clear, like, this is your import section, this is your data section, this is your parameters, like it, and everything is separated, and you can't kind of combine it. Where in Amibroker, you can do whatever you want. So by taking those guidelines off you, you end up just doing the same thing anyway. It's just I'm creating a note that says this is the parameter section and putting everything under there, where you could just throw it anywhere you want it in the code. So you kind of, you're taking the guardrails off yourself, but at the same time you can just put them back on. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm just kind of forcing myself to put them. So I'll probably end up with a sample script that will have just the notes of this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, that goes here. And then the other thing that was a bit of a problem is the whole adding of the columns. Because I created my own thing, I didn't realize that there had to be notes in certain sections in order for the columns to go in. So that was a bit of a battle, but I got over that as well. So, it's been a lot. Like, this isn't something that I think you go, oh, I'm going to learn Amibroker this weekend, right? I'm dedicating like probably a couple hours a day. A lot of that is just waiting for back tests to finish and all of that. But I'm slugging through, but I'm using it as like I don't really want to look at anything else until I'm done this, because it'd be like reading multiple books where you'd forget kind of where you were in book one
Yeah.
when you're reading book two. Like, I just really want to focus on this. So I think you should almost write off a month of just, okay, let me get, so I can build very basic scripts in that period of time, and pretty much nothing else. And as soon as I can do that, and I could kind of sit down from a blank page and build an opening range breakout kind of strategy, then I won't feel confident that I have any idea what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'll get there. And one thing to note, as you're talking, it reminded me of a point I wanted to make. So you might think that Amibroker like looks old. It's this downloadable program. It looks sort of like it was created in the late 90s. You might think that's a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing. You don't want your software that you're relying on for like a serious, I mean, this is serious stuff we're doing. We're
Hmm.
making a lot of money trading the stock market. It's an important part of our lives, of our well-being. So what you don't want is software that's jumping on the latest fad, the latest user interface
Hmm.
style, that and to like reorient the program completely, and you have to go through a similar process to learn what they've changed. Amber is not like that. Like this is a program that's been around for 30 years with and the only changes to it, you can tell. I can tell very quickly that the person that's making changes are adding things that traders need, and you can tell that he is a trader just by watching the stuff he adds in a very systematic and intentional way. He's not taking requests from the latest faddish requests that come from traders that think they know what they want. He's really thinking carefully about what should be in this program,
Mhm.
and I think it shows. I mean, it's been around for 30 years, and people are still using it and using it to make a lot of money. So I think it's been a success, but you may have to look under the covers a little bit to really
What to say?
understand it.
Either an LLM that has caught up and is really good with it, or better error coding, or both for mine if you're talking to it. But this is, and again, this is one of those things that I think about, that eventually there will be an LLM that will understand this well enough that it will be able to push. And we had Marston Parker on talk about how I built my own, right? I have a real test GPT, and you guys can reach out to me if you want access to it, because I've been told not to just put it on the store. But it can, very quickly. Last night there was a scan that I wanted to run, and I can just type it in there and it can spit it out, and I can change some stuff. So, you always look at it and you say these AIs are as dumb as they'll ever be at this point. They're only going to get better. So at
Yeah,
some point that will help. But I want to be able to still do a lot of this myself, so I can kind of fact check it and go from there.
yeah,
And one of the things that's helped me out huge is just looking at other people's codes, like just Googling, I want to build this strategy, and seeing someone else who had a blog post and they shared their code with it there. And then just, side by side, this is what I did, this is what he did, and try to figure that out. And really, it's been one of those, I loved math in school, and it's been one of those as well where you're trying to figure out like a formula or an equation or something, and you smash your head against a wall until you're incredibly frustrated, and then you get that breakthrough, and you go, okay, now I understand. So it's, just every time kind of push me along. But I did have a question just about the more of the internals of kind of how this works, and just for my own system. So part of the problem that I have is that, like, right now I can't go and build a database, for a new database in Amibroker for myself, because I got all this stuff I got to do for Stats Edge trading tonight with real test, right? So I can't have the system just running. It's not doing any trading. I'm still in backtest world with it. But the way I have things set up now, just so everyone knows, I have my MacBook, and this is like a $7,000 crazy MacBook, super super fast, and that's what I do the podcast on and record my videos, and it does all the day to day work. And then I have a PC that I remote into, and that does the crunching thing. The reason I got that PC, instead of some people saying, well, just run Parallels or something like that on your MacBook, a virtual machine, is because the amount of RAM that Real Test needs is huge, right? So I need like 32 gigs of dedicated RAM just to build it in RAM. But my chats with you showed that Amibroker isn't that RAM hungry. It's more, I think, processor and memory hungry.
well, uh, you will need even more RAM than you're using with real test. It's been a many years since I've only had 32 gigabytes of RAM on a machine that I run Amibroker on.
Mm.
I've got 96 now, and, and it does handle um, Amibroker pretty well, but there are so in the last phase of the backtest we were just talking about, where it adds the custom columns, that's where it's going to use an extraordinary amount of RAM. And if you look at your memory as that's happening, it's going to be bouncing up and down dramatically, like no other program I've ever seen. Um, so that's the part that needs all the memory, and I it, I believe that some of the crashes you've experienced are probably because of a limited amount of RAM and running a back test that has a whole bunch of trades in it. That's the part that's going to create it just has to go through and if you can look at the sample code and see what's going on, it's keeping track of the columns and then actually adding them to the the back test in the last phase, so you can see how that uses a lot of RAM. The more trades you have, the more RAM it's going to use, and it'll use every bit of what you got. Certainly, if you're only using 32 gigabytes. You're muted.
Sorry, I had to yell at dogs during the middle of that. But what I was going to propose is like splitting them. If I was under the assumption that I wouldn't need an insane amount of RAM for Amibroker, so I'd have like my real test machine, and then use the parallels for the Amibroker, so I could kind of separate those. But looks like no. But
Yeah.
so you're gonna make me go buy a gaming computer next.
Well,
But
it's funny you mentioned that because I think a lot about the trading computers I get for this, and we've done, I think, at least a couple episodes on
well, we
the
went through
trading computers
I
I use.
remember your painful journey.
Well,
Right.
in that I made a post to the newsletter and linked to exactly the configuration that I just bought for my trading computer and for the computer that runs Amibroker.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very popular post. I got more feedback on that than, like, I had multiple traders contacting me saying, "Hey, yeah, I bought that exact configuration." One guy in Chicago said, "Yeah, I called the store you bought this from in Raleigh. They won't ship it to me. Is there someplace else you can get this?" So I'll put a link into the show notes about to link to exactly the
Mm-hmm.
configuration I have that I'm happy with. Um, but yeah, I think it's important to have uh, CPU, a multi-threaded CPU, and a lot of memory to use Amibroker well.
Which we are, as we're talking, we're in like the big memory crunch where I'm sure you've
Yeah.
seen the chart of RAM prices
Mhm.
just through and then I live in Canada, and me and you are supposed to be mad at each other, I guess, for some reason. So getting computer parts up here is a little bit harder, but that could be part of it as well, because that was actually going to be what I talked about, where it's probably actually going to be the difference, because I now have this 1 year database running pretty smooth. I'm confident enough now that if I run a back test and there's just no result to the end, or something just goes kaput, that it is the code and the script inside the back test and not any other part. And that's where I need to be, right? I need to be to the point where I'm like, okay, this is, everything hardware wise and database wise is correct. If it's not doing what I want it to do, it's like my fault in programming, right? But I was still having problems with the 5 year. So I'd run the 5 year. The last time I ran the 5 year thing, it got kind of hung up, but I was able to hit stop and then wait half an hour, and I could see the data was there. But every time I ran a back test on it, when it had columns, it would just cut out. So it just seems like I'm probably hitting a hardware limitation there. So it might just be, I guess, incrementally increasing. Like you said, it's very easy to make database. So instead of going from 1 year to 5 year, maybe I take the same script and then I go to 2 years, and then I take the same script in 3 years and just try to find where my upward limit is and just live within that until I can get
Yeah.
a gaming PC shipped to my little
Yeah.
woods.
So with my old trading computer, I would set up different databases for 4 year chunks. So for example, like I have data going back to the year 2000, 1 minute bar data across
Hmm.
US equities.
Which is, yeah, no, I'm not trying to get that far. I'm trying to go to, I thought I was saying the year 2000. No, I'm trying to go to 2020. But
Yeah.
yeah, so you're
So
20 years further back than that.
now I don't need to waste resources and do a back test across all that data for every back test I do, right? That would be
Right.
wasteful. So what I did was I would set up databases from, 2000 to 2005, 2005 to 2010. And that way, when I come across a strategy that I think will benefit from having more history, I can go run it just on that database. And it's not doing the entire database, which would require,
Hmm.
more resources. It's just looking at a specific time period. That worked pretty well, and I like that I can segment it off and have my main backtesting database just be the time period that I know I'm going to be backtesting on in most for most strategies. but then do have the option of going back in the event that I need to, and to use the larger backtesting window.
And I kind of like that too, because I know you're not the largest fan of like a walk forward testing or in sample out of sample stuff, but you're kind of doing that by default anyway. I think with doing that, which is one of the things I like about it, is the idea is that I want to get to a point where the strategy, at least the base strategy, is somewhat profitable on its own on the 1 year database without optimization and things like that. As kind of okay, now this is worth your time to go back and to completely and go from there. So I do like that, where it's like, okay, yeah, it's kind of earned its right to now run it against a larger database. But I guess, yeah, I need to go back and I need to figure out, can I just upgrade the RAM on that little computer I got, or do I have to go and buy a whole new beast? And like, I think it's good that we have this dichotomy, because I'm a Mac guy, not because it's simple. I go and I buy the thing and I plug the thing in and the thing works, right? So it ends up just being a different way of looking at it, a different beast entirely, to go, okay, well, now I need to figure out, I need to get a computer that can do this thing and do all that. But this is important, I think, for the audience, because you got to think about these things, right? If you're sitting there on like your ThinkPad laptop with 8 gigs of RAM that your work gave you, you're not going to be running giant giant back tests and things like this. You're gonna have to go through and go, okay, well, I need to upgrade. I need to find a dedicated thing, which, again, you should, right? If we're trying to
Yeah.
make a bunch of money on this, it makes sense that we should go out and do this. But
Yeah, and I always come back to being comforted by the fact that this stuff is so hard. I mean, most people aren't going to go through the steps that you're going through, for a variety of reasons. And it also becomes really clear why it's so hard, and why so few backtesting softwares support backtesting across the entire market.
mhm,
Because, as you're saying, it's a very technically difficult and resource intensive problem to solve. It doesn't seem like it should be, but when you do the math, look at the data that you're having to crunch through, it's just very resource intensive. So it really makes the good software providers, and the really the backtesting software that's worth using really stands out, because you can
mhm.
tell that somebody didn't make this just in their garage. This is somebody who's actually trading and understands what's involved. And go back and look at the episode we did on backtesting software, and we talk a lot about this, but it really becomes very clear who knows what they're doing and who doesn't.
And you should like this. And I don't know if I made this analogy with just you, Dave, or if I did it on the podcast. So I apologize if I do it again. But like, I like me and both my wife, we play video games, right? We enjoy. And for me, my favorite part of it is learning the new mechanics, right? So it's like, okay, you're playing this game and it wants you to do this, and then this is how, and you're kind of, I don't like ones that, really hold your hand through it, but you're like learning as you go, and you're kind of figuring it out. And I would say, as incredibly annoyed as I've been at this process the whole time, I think you kind of have to enjoy this part of the game, because wherever you are in your trading journey, there's a wall there, right? And the way to make more money is to move past that wall. And the thing that I like about this, as opposed to discretionary trading, is like, okay, I just need to be more of like a Zen monk, or I need to be more of
Yeah.
battle my emotions, and, oh, I did that stupid thing, and it's great for them, but it's not a tangible, this is my problem and then this is my solution to that problem, right? Where for me it was, okay, I got to get this goddamn data in this goddamn system. And that is a tangible problem with a tangible solution. And when that's done, it's like, okay, I have to get more data in this system. And I know that every step of this will lead to eventually I'll have, a system that's a pretty basic opening range break system, and it will make a non-zero amount of money over the long run, right? It's not going to make money every day, but it will. So knowing that that is there, and knowing that, all of these steps to get there, it kind of does feel like that, where it's like I'm leveling up on the way to the process, and eventually I'll have a giant loud gaming PC that the wife will hate, and I'll be able to run this data, and then okay, and then the question is, do you get to that point and then you're just satisfied and you dust your hands? But like we talk about, it's like no, it's like okay, now that I've got that, now that's on rails. The amount of work I have to do for this opening range break system is near nothing. I'll have an SOP. It will probably take couple minutes a day to get everything set up and running. But then you just don't go to the beach, right? You keep pushing, which is why I love. The more I got into systematic trading, the more I loved it, is because there's always a wall in the way, and you're always trying to figure out. And as soon as you get that, there's never a step back, which is what I think, for people who are listening who are discretionary traders, it's where a lot of them fall into problems where they are, they'll end up doing some good things and then they'll like have a bad day or do something they shouldn't or do something stupid. And there's no forward progress there. You're stuck inside this cycle because it's your brain you're battling as opposed to an external beast that you're conquering. So that's the big thing, is I feel that with this, like I have a monster that I have to kill, and it's, I know there's another one behind it, but at least it's right there and I
Yeah.
can see it and I know when I'm done, and I know, that it's going to be time to do something else.
Yeah, and unlike a game, this isn't, you're not doing this for fun. You can see, okay, if I solve this, if I can get through this, I
Hmm.
know there's strategies I can use that will make money. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the whole point. So, I got a question from a reader on my newsletter the other day asking about they wanted to learn Python, and they were asking about the best way to learn it. And they said, okay, here's this online tutorial site that you pay for, like this course. Do you think that's worth using? And my answer was no. Like, you're not ever going to be as motivated to learn something unless it actually makes your life better by learning it. So coming
Hmm.
up with arbitrary examples like some online courses do, you're not going to stay motivated to do that. It's way more motivating to have something. Okay, here's a trading problem I have this idea I want to test. What's the best way to do that? And that's, starting from that standpoint rather than, hey, I want to learn something just for the sake of learning it. You're going to learn it way faster by solving a problem. All of a sudden, when you solve it, your life gets better in some way.
And I can totally second that. As someone who's gone through that, I've downloaded all like the little apps and like the little like learning games, and the right, they give you stars and blah blah, but you're like, okay, that's whatever, that's fine. But no, you 100% agree that, you need to know that by the end of it, this is the goal. And for me, I just looked, the way I started this mission for myself is like, okay, I want a fully automated like opening range break system, and I gave myself a time limit, which I know is arbitrary and whatever, but it's just to push myself to do it, saying I want to do this and I want to run it against this prop account and I want to do that in this period of time. So it just makes it to the point where every time I'm like, screw this thing, which has happened a bunch of times where I'm like, hey, I've got my swing trading, it's going well. I had an amazing year last year. But by setting that kind of achievable goal and just pushing yourself to it, you'll get way better at whatever it is. You won't go through and you know you won't push yourself harder than if you just, okay, this is the mission. And then again, look at it like every block, just look at the thing that's in front of you right now. Like, I'm not thinking a million years down the road. It was get the data in. Okay, now run a simple back test. Right
Yeah.
now, add columns to that simple back. Right, and just and that I think helps with it as well. Where I would set myself, I want to do this one thing by the end of the day, and sometimes I'm being a good dad and taking time off, putting the kids to bed, and then going and sitting until midnight to try to figure it out. And then sometimes I finish that task at noon, and I get to do whatever else. But just put like small. I think that's part of the problem too. Is if you sit and just looked at the end goal and say, "How do I get there?" You've just screwed
Yeah.
yourself, right? What is the steps that I have to do to get there?
Yeah, it's a really good skill to have to be able to break a problem, large problem down into solvable steps. And the better you are at doing that yourself, the better you can harness an LLM to do that for you.
Hmm.
Uh, to separate the problem just to different steps, solve certain parts of it. You're gonna like it's definitely a skill. You'll get better at it over time, but it's really valuable to be able to do that. I mean, that's literally how you solve problems. You can't tell an LLM to, you know, create a profitable strategy for me. Like there's so many steps in doing that. Like the problem doesn't even make sense.
Hmm. Well, and to go into LLMs again, it's not great with Amibroker, but I have found, wife probably thinks I'm crazy, but I've found like the voice mode on them have been great, where I'm just sitting here and I'm just talking to the thing, like it's an assistant kind of like helping me out, and it's been great just to say, okay, what about this? And I did that a lot with your demo code, because I have some experience with, when I saw that ref thing, you'll know what I'm talking about in trade ideas that I was doing with, and it sometimes works the same and sometimes work different. I kept typing with it and it'd give me these big long explanations, but I found the voice mode really good just to say why and just have it kind of rant at you. So yeah, just understand that you have these assistants, and if they are small problems that you can get through, they're really really good. But the big problems, again, especially with Amibroker, it's awful,
Yeah.
for now. For now.
Yeah. Well, LLMs have never made a trade or never had to live off money they've traded. So that's a
Right.
very important difference.
Yeah, so I am. It's kind of embarrassing to say, but I am still in data mode. So I guess it's one of those things. I'll continue to plug away. I think the kind of takeaways I have from here is, instead of going from 1 year to 5 years, I'm probably am hitting a RAM limit, and I'll go from 1 year to 2 years, and I'll build that database and run the. Now that I have a stable working opening range break short strategy that is different from yours, that I took yours and I kind of built myself,
Hmm.
and it looks okay. I haven't done any optimization, so now it's just expanding out either a year or maybe 6 months at a time, more and more databases, until I get to the point where I'm starting to hit that limit and getting those errors, which will probably take the whole weekend, but that's okay. And once I get there, I'm like, okay, this is the current physical limit to the computer that I have, and let's kind of go from there. Because even if I could get 2 3 years for a 1 minute candle system for data, that's good enough, I think, for
Yeah,
me to
you can
deploy
you can
something.
get a lot of confidence in that for sure.
Yeah. So then that might be in it. I don't know. It's been ages ago that we did this podcast where we talked about buying something with your trading profits. So maybe
Yeah.
that will be the goal, is that the first bit of money I make from this particular system, I'll allocate to some monster, again, gaming PC with what RGB lights, and it'll be loud as hell, and the wife will hate it. So I'll have to like put it in my little server room or something instead. but
Yeah, I love it. Yep.
but yeah, so that's the update. And again, as long as you guys are interested, we'll continue to make more updates. I don't know if we'll be able to do it like every podcast like we've been doing, but I think maybe a monthly check-in or something on my Amibroker process will be cool. And ask your questions. So again, we did this additional episode because of the YouTube comments and the emails and everything that we've gotten. So continue to ask away, and what you want to see and what you want to look at, because it makes our job super easy when we're just like, hey, we got this cool email, let's talk about it, and we can just
Yeah.
turn on the thing, and away you go.
Yeah, the feedback's been great, and yeah, continue to do that. I've got a whole bunch of questions from readers that I've got queued up, and I'm trying to work my way through. So it's always good to get questions like that because it just makes us think about new things to talk about, and new ways to help people.
Well, and like you mentioned, right? Me going through this process now is like shaking things loose in your brain from when you used to, when you did things before, right? It's like understanding that, it's you, when you get good at something, you kind of take for granted some of the details that just become like second nature to you, right? They're just like
Hmm.
breathing, and you don't understand that. Hey, oh yeah, someone could get stuck there, but I've just been doing it for 20 years, so I just kind of know that that error means this, and I need to get past that point, and I need to move on. And yeah, so when you guys bring these questions to us, you've seen it in some podcasts, they turn into like pretty interesting debates, even though sometimes the initial reaction seems obvious, that you can go back and go, no, this actually, now that I think about it, and you start to sometimes expand your own mind to answering other people's questions.
Yeah, love it. All right. Well, I'm glad we got to catch up on this, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next phase of your Amibroker adventure.
Yeah, hopefully a little bit past importing data the next time if we catch up
Yeah.
next month. But as always, I'm Michael Noss.
And I'm Dave May. Talk to you next week on Line Your Own Pockets.